So, yeah.
So in part, then, Ehrman's books seem to have drawn a large following because he's talking about things most people, never really learn about in church. I mean, if you just take everything by faith, then you don't have to study these things and ferret out.
Yeah, why do anything in church? That's a weird thing to do. Just do it.
Yeah.
It's just a Nike version of
That's
it.
right. That's right.
Weird.
The Nike version of church, right?
Right.
Ehrman knows all too well that the average person in the pew has little to no knowledge of the historical and theological issues that he raises, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that this book wants to show us is that, unfortunately, all too often, Ehrman's rhetoric and his interpretations conceal more than they reveal.
Right.
He leaves the impression that his view is the standard fare of all biblical scholars. This is what scholars believe, right? And so, obviously among some circles...
The science says.
That's right.
Yeah.
Science says. Right?
Science or scientists?
Yeah.
There's
science.
Right.
Not scientists, right? So obviously, among some scholars, this is true. This is what some scholars believe. His position, that sort of thing.
We would put Ehrman as a scholar.
Yeah, but
no doubt about it.
Plenty of scholars see things different than the way Ehrman sees them. Right. And so, so you have this kind of an assumption of authority that he gives when he's making his presentations. Right.
Because the truth claims that he does present, saying things like Paul definitely wrote Romans.
Right.
Okay, well, I know he doesn't believe in it, so therefore his
so it's enough. He gives us enough of that so that we can buy the rest of the stuff that he's selling.
Yeah.
Right.
and so he kind of trades on that reputation.
Yeah.
But if you come to believe in it, then you're kicked out, right? So whether written for a lay audience or not, a work of scholarship should set out to defend a position against the best of the opposing position. So you can maybe give him credit for things like misquoting Jesus and not presenting it because you want to sell books or whatever it might be. And you might not want to deal with all the critiques. You just want to present your positive case, and that's fine. People do that all the time. But to say that there's no answers outside this book would be disingenuous.
Or this is what all the scholars believe. Well, wait a minute. If you're talking about scholars, then you at least need to include some criticisms, critiques, and that sort of thing. Otherwise, it's not really a scholarly writing. Right. Now, again, he's writing for the lay audience, but still, you want people to understand, at least some of the arguments against your position, so that they can understand that you have good reasons to believe what you believe. Right?
Reading anything by Kruger, the question of the canon is a great one. His one that he wrote with Kostenberger, the heresy of orthodoxy. They're always quick to admit when the other side has a really good point, and they talk about the positive aspects to different approaches outside of theirs, and I respect that, and I get a lot from that because they're saying, hey, this isn't just they're the other side and they're wrong, they're stupid. No, they're saying that there's value in looking at it through this way, and responding to the best arguments the other side has to offer gives you the best kind of bulletproof for their arguments. Yeah. That's what you want to do. That's what you would want to have done to yours, and you want to present it accurately and in the best light possible. You want to kind of Iron Man it instead of straw man it. So as will become apparent in subsequent chapters, Ehrman has a way of stereotyping scholarship depending on whether it agrees with its own views. He routinely misrepresents, underrepresents, or never represents those who oppose his position. Mm-hmm. So sometimes he'll say, well, this person's a believer. He's a Christian, and so he falls outside the circle that I draw where, you have to look at things through a secular-only skeptical viewpoint, and that's how you get the best version of truth, because you're not clouding it with this bias of faith. So that's where he kind of draws his circles. So our problem with Ehrman's book is not that he's making historical arguments, because that's what they expect him to do. While we think people should simply ignore the evidence and believe blindly, that's not what they want, of course. Right. We never want that. No one ever should want that. Our problem with his book is that we are convinced Ehrman's arguments are not the best ones, and he's done little to acknowledge scholarly alternatives to his position.
Right, and so what they want to do then, since they have this problem, is to point out the other side of the story. Mm-hmm. Right, they believe that Ehrman is only giving us one side of the story,
right,
and they want us to see that there is another side of the story. Mm-hmm. Right, and so. The other thing they do then is they make Ehrman's book, his positions rather, a test case, right? So that they're not trying to convince Ehrman that he's wrong,
right? Yeah.
Or other scholars, skeptical scholars, that they're right, right? Well, they say that we trust Ehrman. We trust knows most of the information that they set forth in these pages, and has chosen to follow his own line of reasoning due to a variety of factors. Instead, what they're trying to do is writing to those who have not encountered the arguments that are against what Ehrman has to say, right? And who need better understanding of the other side of the argument. So that's what they're trying to present, the other side of the story.
Right.
Right.
Right.